Hello, Cathy.
Hi, how are you?
I am fine, thank you. Good evening and welcome to CWS as it is.
Thank you, thank you.
Awesome. Well, first of all, a happy International Women's Day to you and all other women.
Thank you, Selwyn. It's an important day.
Let us skip. I would love to beg your indulgence to let us skip the usual who is CathyHughes and until your appearance later this month on CWS Journeys. However, tell us why is this coalition between AFC and APNU so important to Guyanese?
Well, I think it really is a historic thing. I think that for too many years, if we look at even yourself and myself, we grew up in Guyana. And as far back as, the early 70s when would have been in primary school, we've heard of the challenges that existed in the 1963 riots. We grew up with two very strong monolith political parties, mainly the PNC and the PPP. And coming through in the 80s, I remember we were all excited with the emergence of the WPA. But at the end of the day, I think what is great is that Guyana needs to have a system that allows varying political parties to participate in the governance of the country. And I think that's what's so exciting about the Alliance. The Alliance is once again an attempt in history to bring two major groups together. So as you know, since 2005, the Alliance for Change came on the scene. We moved from 5 seats in parliament to 7 seats in parliament. And if you look at the results of the last election, if our constitution allowed the Alliance for Change and APNU, which was a formation of 5 different political parties, including the PNC, if our political system, the last election round, allowed what became a majority opposition to form a government, then we would have been in government had the two parties been able to join together.
Mm-hmm.
So from 2011 to now, we have tried to work together in Parliament with the government, the PPP. In many cases, we have not achieved what we had hoped to achieve. And so it became very, very important that we needed to table a no confidence motion, which the Alliance for Change tabled, and we needed to go to an election.
Mm-hmm.
And we recognize that it's important to think not about one political party gaining power and a large majority or minority not being able to play and to participate in governance. And so that's why we felt that we want to start promoting once again in our history the importance of a national government.
Awesome. So tell us why many years. You mentioned the AFC, which is one of the major players in this coalition. Why did you join that party? Why Alliance for Change?
Well, I had been from going back since I returned to Guyana, and believe it or not, it's now like 21 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
When I returned back to Guyana, I got involved with several NGO organizations, and I looked at what we had to offer the people of Guyana. I had the great fortune that I had spent close to 17 years out of Guyana, living in Jamaica, living in England, living in the US. And when I returned home, as they say, when you're away, you then really begin to appreciate all that your home has to offer. And so I looked at the politics of the day, and although I came back not too long after the PPP came into power, and there was a lot of excitement and there was a lot of hope, after the first decade, we began to see a different side to the governance. We began to see a rise in corruption, just a few individuals taking the pie of what Guyana had to offer. And I, with some friends, joined an organization. In fact, we founded an organization called Guyana's First.
Mm-hmm.
And we tried to do a lot of things in the community. I was very involved in another NGO called Women Across Against Violence. And that was around the time that we were finding that a lot of young men were being shot by police. There were high incidences of violence between the police and young black men. And we felt, I felt that, all these are issues that I wanted to, with a team of like-minded people, start to find solutions for. They're fundamental problems, and really the problems in Guyana are not so huge that we can't implement solutions. So through these various organizations, I started to become very, very active. And then my good friend Raffle Trotman, I did not know Camraj at the time, but they decided that they were going to form a political grouping. At that time, it was going to be a pressure group. It was not a political party. And, I said to them one evening at a cocktail party, oh, congratulations, that's great. Let me know if you could help, if I could help. And of course, they came back to me and they said, Cathy, of course we need help. We can't do it alone. Think about it and give me a call. And that night I remember sitting down thinking, when I look back at Guyana, I think part of our problem is that so many people, instead of trying to change the face of what the country is, thought that the easiest way out is to deal with the frustrations and the challenges is to just pick up and walk with their feet. So we've suffered with a very large number of people, Guyanese people, the best of our skills have migrated and are in the diaspora. And I thought to myself, why should I continue to sit down and just watch this and not do anything? And that's it in a nutshell. I remember going to the first get-together just before the party was formed, and Raphael had said to me, come and help us with some PR because that's your background. And I said, yeah, no problem. And I went to the meeting, and I went to the first 3 meetings. And, the third time around, I said, Raphael, where's the PR team? And he said, right now, Cathy, you're the PR person. There's nobody else. So the rest, of course, is history, huh?
But Kathy, you are no stranger to pressure groups. I remember when we were very young, you were part of a movement from St. Roses. We were at St. Roses at the time, sorry. And you were part of a movement to bring about change. We're not going to get into that right now. I'll leave some for when you come on later on this month on CWS Journeys. But when you joined this party in the beginning, Guyana and many other Caribbean countries are known for a male-dominated political environment that doesn't really allow for women to, or encourage women to be main players in the political theater and so on. But what kept you going? What is it that made you decide, you know what, I am going to endure this to the end?
Well, if I'm honest, for a long time, for the first maybe 2 years that I was involved with the Alliance for Change, I really tried to keep my involvement on the wraps. I really felt because of the kind of society we have in Guyana where victimization, I know from my personal experience, is a real thing. So one of the big concerns I had was for my businesses. So for example, although I handled the PR, I never wanted to sit at a press conference and represent myself as a member of the Alliance for Change, which is a very, very sad position to have wanted to take,
Hmm.
And I did that for the first, maybe the first year or so. And then I just thought, this is just so wrong. What about the tenets of a democracy? Your right to have your own opinions, your right to share opinions, freedom of the press. Why shouldn't I be able to say that I disagree with this or agree with that, and not have to face victimization? And compared to a lot of people I met in Guyana who felt the same way, I had a tremendous opportunity because I actually ran my own businesses. So it wasn't a case like I was employed in a government agency, in which
Hmm.
case you that if you got involved and spoke out, you would probably not have a job the next day. So I always think it was a less of a risk for me. And what keeps me going is that every day I meet ordinary Guyanese on the street. And it's not just now. I'm encouraged because I'm seeing a larger number of Guyanese from all kinds of groupings, all kinds of mixtures that stop me in the market, in the supermarket, and say to me, keep going, we got to do that, we're behind you, we're with you, kind of thing. But over the years, I have met so many ordinary Guyanese that have come to me with their challenges, with their problems, with the most horrific of situations. And I've come to realize that, just I have a voice, and just being able to say in a press conference that this situation has happened and I've written a letter and I'm hoping to get a response. Well, quite often when I make a statement like that, the next day there is a response. So I have felt that it's a gift that I've been given and I have to use it. I always remember my parents saying, to whom much is given, much is
Which is
expected.
expected.
And that's it in a nutshell, really.
What do you say to the women today, to encourage them to participate in this electoral process? Those who might be ambivalent about voting simply because they have some of your earlier fears of being victimized. How do you encourage them?
Well, I say to them that part of the challenges we face today in Guyana, whereby, for example, in the allocation of contracts or the jobs that are available specifically for women, when you look at the challenges women have in going to a bank to get a loan for a business enterprise that they may want to start, all those are really indications that there's a lot that needs to be fixed. And that in some respects, a lot of our systems are still very heavily dominated by men. And as women have taken a backseat and decided not really to get involved in what we call the dirty game of politics, that what's happened is that we haven't had a voice at the table. So I say to them, look, um, I encourage you. For example, one of the things we're excited about is that we have done some changes to the local government laws recently. And so it meant that in a lot of communities, once again, communities could get individuals within a specific geographical area that's interested in representing the community to come forward and to participate and to form their own little groups and their own little parties. It doesn't have to be a political party contesting. So I've been saying to them, you're already involved in your churches. You're involved in the nursery school, the community groups. You're fundraising to build and improve where you live. And I've been saying to them, look, make the first step. Try and contribute and participate in the governance of our democratic councils in our smaller communities. And I've said to them that more and more there are people in Ghana that we can see that are standing up for what is right, what is fair, and what is just. And therefore, it's not as if they're going to be alone. If for their reasons of employment or the business that they may have, they worry about their livelihood and being able to sustain an income and look after their family, I say to them, that's perfectly okay. I understand that challenge. And therefore, we say, when you get into that box, when you get into that voting booth, your vote is private. It is really your personal choice. And therefore, we encourage them to do the right change, to vote for change, to vote for an opportunity for another group of people, another political union to implement a new way of doing politics in Guyana.
Oh,
And I think we get a good result from that. Of course, the ultimate test is going to come May 11th,
May
but
11th.
I'm encouraged.
What surprised you, Kathy? And I'm just curious about this. When you got into Parliament, what surprised you about Guyana Parliament, and what still surprises you?
My biggest surprise was not so much a surprise, but a disappointment.
Hmm.
Most of the players I knew through either my work in as a television producer in making documentaries for several agencies and ministries of the government or NGO organizations. So most of the ministers and individuals I knew, I counted quite a few of them as friends. We met at cocktails, diplomatic functions, that kind of thing. But what surprised me was that when we were actually in Parliament, in the session, when the House was in session, the lines were very clearly drawn. And some of the negotiation that I thought could take place and some of the compromise on issues of national importance really did not pan out. It really was not supported on all sides of the political fence.
What?
And so it would be a case where, if I'm talking about some of my female MPs, some from other political parties, we'd meet in the ladies' room and we would both be lamenting, oh gosh, that was terrible. Why did it have to come to that? But the reality is that in there, when we're making the decisions, uh, quite often the lines are so very, very deeply drawn. And that, I think, is my biggest disappointment and was a surprise to me.
I want to try hypothetical in there. If the political theater were to change and become more female oriented, more women in the political arena, what do you, by that, how do you envision a Guyana with such a government?
Well, I think we would really be able to move forward in terms of how women are seen in the society. We have made some tremendous strides. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But in areas of employment, for example, Ghana is still very, very traditional in the way we do things. So for most companies, if you are going to be hired by a company, they would expect you to be at your office, sitting there from 8 o'clock to maybe 4:30 in the afternoon. Very few companies would allow their staff to work from home, to have flexi hours and things like that. And I think when we look at the plight of women in Guyana today, we have a larger number of women that are graduating from university. We've made strides in that area. More women are graduating than men. Quite a few women are employed at the professional level. We're running quite a few businesses. But I would say at the lower and the middle income levels, there still is not enough focus on creating jobs that meet the needs of women. And there I talk about right now, a lot of our women over the last, I would say, 8, 9 years are finding jobs that have basic qualifications, are finding jobs in the security sector. So they're hired as security guards. That takes many of them away from their homes, from a shift that starts 6 in the afternoon right through to 6 the next morning. So research is showing that we have a lot of homes that are traditionally single parent homes headed by women, female headed households. And now we're finding that the women are actually not in the home during those critical hours. They're not there to make sure that homework is being done, that the teenagers are properly supervised. It's usually an elder daughter or a big cousin or a big sister that's trying to run the house and manage the house. And I think we are seeing the results of that. So one of the things that I think that if women had a larger voice, we could actually start promoting employment opportunities where employers are given tax credits, for example, for having and offering within an office environment daycare facilities. They could be given tax hours, tax credits to ensure that women could work from home, which would ensure that they can blend in a much easier way the functions of being a mother and looking after the children and looking after the home and the demands of a job. So I think that when we are at the table, we can raise some of these issues. And I've had enough situations when I've been in a meeting, there've been 1 or 2 women and maybe 20 men. And, we've said, hey, how about looking at it this way? And in most cases they're not. Our suggestions are readily accepted. And the comment you hear is, oh gosh, I never thought of it from that way. I never looked at it that way. And that's why I think we have to be at the table.
Cathy, this coalition, what is it you know, having known both of the players, David Granger and Moses Nagamutu? What do you know that you can tell the rest of the Guyanese people, especially those of us in the diaspora? What do you know about them that encouraged you to throw your full support behind this coalition?
Well, I think it probably started within the AFC with my relationship with Kemraj Ramchatas. When I first met Kemraj, I did not know him. My husband knew him. to work as a lawyer. And as I got to know Kemraj, I had nothing else but the ultimate of respect for him. Kemraj is a true fighter. And believe it or not, within our party, I could be sitting in a meeting and you're a little tired and you want to go home. And so you're not participating as much as you should be. And Kemraj has always been the one that would say, Cathy, what's the story? I'm hearing from you. I want to know what you think about this particular issue. So he has been always very, very committed to pulling the views of the women in the party out and encouraging us to participate. Sometimes people would be volunteering to go to a specific meeting or an event to represent the AFC, and some of the guys might have been out the gate faster than some of the women in the party, and he'd be the one to say, okay, we got enough men now. I want one of you to step aside and we need two women. Which two women are going to step forward, you know? And so I've really admired him in that respect. He is a no-nonsense man. And what is great about Kemraj is that he's always been willing to say exactly what he feels. To the extent that sometimes it's been a challenge for us, especially from a PR point of view, you know? He's not the man that's going to sugarcoat anything. Now, I met Moses when he came into the party at the end of, just before the last elections. And Moses and my father actually were friends. And I really did not have an opportunity to know him much before that, but I consider him my mentor. Debbie Backer and Moses Nagamutu are the two people that really gave me the support in Parliament, because it was a totally new thing for me. And they both would say, okay, this is what's happening. This is what you need to do. Look, this is going to happen now. This is how we're going to handle this situation. Moses, I now consider a very close friend. Mm-hmm. He's a very wise politician. Moses has come from the belly of the PPP. And I think because he has children my age, because he has young grandchildren that live overseas, he understands that the traditional politics of one race against another, one huge political party and against another political party, will not move Guyana forward. And so I think he is very, very committed to bringing a new dispensation to how we do politics. So within the party, Moses, a long time ago, was the one that started to say, we got to go into some kind of alliance. If the AFC were lucky enough to win, and we got in there and we were the government, what about the other 50% or the other 51 or 54% that would be forming the opposition? They still need to be able to participate. If not, a lot of our time and energy will be spent fighting. And so he was one of the first that was started to push the concept of a national government and of an alliance. And of course, it took us a little longer because it's always a challenge. Moving members of your party that have different experiences, live in different regions, some rural, some urban, and it's all the process of trying to convince them. And unfortunately, along the way, we've lost some. But David Granger, I knew and is, for me, a very honorable man. I've known David for many, many years when he had Guyana Review. He is an astute politician. He is an excellent historian. I remember when he used to produce Guyana Review, and I used to take ads for my businesses because it was such a great journal. And as you know, at the time, there are very few journals we've had in Guyana that has tried to capture, the ongoing history that we're creating every day. So mm-hmm. I have nothing but respect. I'll put my head on a block for all three of the gentlemen.
At what point, when you learned about this potential coalition, did you become comfortable with the idea, or did it grow on you?
It grew on me. It grew on me because in the beginning, having always thought AFC, AFC, AFC.
Uh-huh.
What made it easier, though, is that because we were the majority in the parliament, since 2011, since the 2011 election to now, we've had a lot of contact. We've had to work with APNU to get a few of the bills through, to deal with several situations. We had a lot of contentious situations. The budget, for example, we had to sit and put our heads together. So I think that we had an opportunity where we were forced to work with each other. And therefore, when we started to think about putting our forces together, we had covered some ground. We were a little more comfortable with each other. We knew each other. We'd spent many, many hours in long meetings in Parliament, in the parliamentary chambers, in different committees of the Parliament. And so I think we got to know each other better. So I felt a lot more comfortable. And I think that made it easier. Right now, the challenge, of course, is taking our two parties along with us. Yesterday, there was a training session, and a week ago, we had a very intensive training session for activists. And it was great to see people from the AFC and from APNU and other political parties all there. These are people in communities that are friends, but every time election came around, had to kind of do a little quiet distinction. So it's actually been a great thing to know that we're now all on the same side, you know?
This is good.
So
Are you hopeful that this will work?
I am very hopeful. You know, what I say is, I don't want to use the word hopeful. I don't think hopeful is strong enough. It has to work.
I like that.
It has to work. It has to work.
I like that.
The way we've done it cannot continue. We cannot continue this way.
Cathy, what are three policy changes you would like to see implemented immediately should this coalition take governance?
Well, the first thing is, I would say, the Constitution. The power of the president has to be changed. As you know, the president in our current Constitution holds the majority of the power. And so we've been talking about constitutional reform that must be done. We need to go back to a system where even in the local government area, so I'd say constitutional reform, in the local government area, the legislation has been done. One of the key pieces of legislation the president did not assent to, and we would plan to do that immediately. And that is because local governance has to go back to the community level. So if you live in Buxton or if you live in Enterprise, the people in those areas have to make the decisions regarding how the contracts are awarded, who fixes the road. It must be someone in your area that represents you, that can fight for clean water. And if they don't perform their duties, if they don't deliver, the people in that community must know that next election they will vote them out. Representation has to come back to the people. The way it's structured right now, as most people would know, is that everything is highly placed in the power of the political party. And I think that is responsible for quite a bit of the challenges that we've had in Guyana in the last 20 years or so.
Cathy, over for a length of time, what has been your deepest concern, perhaps your deepest fear about the future of Guyana?
My deepest fear has been the increase in violence. I was quite distressed about 2 years ago when I remember the former president saying that Guyana was not as bad as Jamaica, let's say, when it came to violence. Well, I lived in Jamaica I moved to Jamaica in 1980 with my family, and in the 1980 election, over 700 people were killed in political violence. And I'm happy to say that up until 2001, when we had a jailbreak, the crime and the violence in Guyana was still, you know, the traditional choke and rob that we knew about from when we were growing up. Unfortunately, in the last 10, 12 years, the politics and the drug trade and violence have been intertwined, as happens in several communities, all across the world, including other places in the Caribbean, including parts of the U.S. And so my biggest fear has been the entrenchment of the expansion of Guyana as a transshipment port, the drugs that come through, the expansion of the drug trade, and the violence that has come with that. With that and with unsound economic policies, people have found it very hard to make ends meet. Young people and women also have fallen prey to the drug pushers and have become couriers in carrying drugs out of Guyana to Europe, North America, where there's a high demand still. And so in unemployment levels have grown. There's been frustration. I actually think that the high levels of domestic violence and the alarmingly high number of women that have died at the hands of their paramours, partners, whatever, husbands in the last 2 or 3 years are all direct results of that change in our economic structure and the invasion of our communities with the drug trade. So I'm worried about that, and I hope that we can get it under control. A place like Jamaica has been battling with political violence, of course, since the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And, they've done some good initiatives. We continue to wish them well, but I hope that it's something that we can really stop, because it has never been part of our history or our experience. It's only within the last 10 years we've been facing that.
Cathy, what is one thing about you would like the women, the Guyanese women, especially those in the diaspora, to know about you, about this person who is committed to changing Guyana's racially biased politics and the eradication of corruption in government? What is one thing you would like to leave with them?
I would like to say to them that, especially to those in the diaspora,
Mm-hmm.
Guyana is still a very beautiful place. I had the opportunity to live for many years out of Guyana and chose to come home. And I tell you, every day I'm very happy here. Every day I laugh. I laugh at the spirit of the Guyanese people, because we are really the warmest and the most hospitable people. We've had a hard road to walk for many, many years, and for many, I would say, since independence. Guyanese people, the country itself, has really not given Guyanese the best that the country has to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say to everyone that, the few of us here in Guyana cannot do it alone. We will not achieve what we want to achieve. And so I say to Guyanese that are home, that have opted out, I try to encourage them to start participating, to get involved, even if it's just in the school that their child goes to, or in clearing and fixing the playground that's in their neighborhood, or, going to an orphanage, or cooking some food on a weekend and going down the road and giving it to some of the street children. To people in the diaspora, I'm always excited because there's so many Guyanese that come home. There's so many organizations that are helping with the hospitals, in interior locations, in education. And I say to people in the diaspora, you are so fortunate because, you've been able to do well. You've been able to quite often secure yourself financially. The kids have gone to university. Some of you have a little extra dollars that you can send home to a particular charity, or you can come home and do something yourself. Your contributions are very, very important to what we're trying to do in Guyana.
In the chat room, Beverly Drake said, "Hello, Cathy," and Andrea said, "It's encouraging to learn of the Alliance Coalition from your perspective, and I expect that may brings change." So, Cathy, what is next for you?
What is next for me right now? What is next for me is a very, very demanding election campaign. Uh, I'm taking a lot of vitamins, and I have a big bottle of Excedrin migraine
Oh,
because things is extremely stressful. But yeah, there's a lot to be done.
yeah.
It's really an incredible feeling because I'm on the ground, so I could say to you that Guyanese of all races are very, they're just ready to go. They're ready for change. People are calling me. They're coming to my office. They want to know how they can help. They want to know what they can do. It's a great momentum. I find people everywhere I go, people are saying, yeah, this can't continue. This can't continue. We have to create a system where ordinary Guyanese can get more of the pie. Just last week, we were hearing that there's a fund that's supposed to provide financial assistance for people that need health care or health facilities or procedures that may not be covered at our public hospitals. And when you consider that, this fund has something like, in this fund, just 2 weeks ago, we discovered, and you all would have been reading about it in the papers, that 3/4 of the funds have gone to ministers of government
Oh no.
who have their teeth fixed. And there are people, ordinary people that need dialysis. 2 days ago, I met a lady in a furniture store who was telling me about her son, who's actually currently unemployed. He needs dialysis 3 times a week. Each time it costs $9,000. And she said to me, what is sad is that she sits there and they are members of the government that come in and do not pay. And her unemployed son has to find $9,000. She works in the furniture store, and so most of her income is going to pay for the dialysis. She doesn't know how she's going to
Wow.
make
In
ends meet. And that's the story of what's happened in the last 15 years or so. I think they started out on the right track, but, it's just gotten way, way, way out of control. And ordinary Guyanese continue to suffer, and we have to change that.
what does it feel, Kathy? And I've been asked to ask you this question. What does it how does it feel to have your husband so committed to the changes in Guyana? How do you guys balance that?
I'll tell you, there's a lot of guilt on my part because Nigel always said, I think people have always been, at least since I've been back in Guyana, have always speculated about Nigel coming into politics. And Nigel always, his close friends would know. He always said that is not for him. He always, and has always served in terms of doing the cases that nobody wanted to take.
Oh, I know
Quite
that
often,
personally.
quite often there were people in society who did not have the means, that were abused by the state, by police, by whatever it is. And so Nigel never really wanted to be involved in the politics part. I must admit that women have a tendency quite often to push and to needle. And I remember when I got involved with the Alliance for Change, he was extremely supportive. He said, Cathy, I know this is what you feel you need to go and do. I am behind you. The first campaign, he would drive me everywhere, and for my own safety would want to know that he was right there. And but never want to get involved, would never speak on a political platform. And I think the change for Nigel was when he started to do that case with Freddie Kissoon. And as he did more and more in-depth research, the more he realized that the current political system really was working against one particular racial group. And I remember him coming with me to a meeting in Linden, and somebody saying to him in Linden, man, Nigel, please come up and say a couple words. And Nigel, every time they asked him before, would say, no, I'm not in this politics thing at all. I'm not in this politics thing at all. And on this one occasion, he said, yeah, you know what? I will say something. And I looked at him in horror. I said, Nigel, sure you want to do that? You know what the results are going to be, your business, your law practice, you're sure, And he said, no, 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 I wanna say something. And what came out of Nigel's mouth that night, that speech in Linden, I was totally speechless, absolutely blown away. And so we unfortunately, our lives are just so involved in him going one direction, I going another direction. But we spend a lot of time together. We both are part of the AFC. So a lot of meetings, and so we're there. And somehow or the other, we seem to have been able to manage, you know. When we come home, we try not to talk politics because that's when we want to talk about something else, you know.
Well, I have to
So
say this.
far,
I
so
have to say
far,
this. Sorry.
God bless us, and it's working.
I have to say this that it does take circumstances to make serious changes or in fact serious transformations, but it
Yeah,
also takes a strong woman. Because I remember in the late 80s when I used to visit Guyana and early 90s, and we
yeah,
will always meet for our customary powwow.
yeah,
We haven't seen each other for a while, and
absolutely.
he would ask me what I think about Guyana politics. And I would always say, Nigel, you must get involved. And he would always refuse. He would always push back. Selwyn Collins, that's not for me. This is not for me. And I would tell him the reasons why I believe that it is important for him to get involved at some level. But he always pushed back. So I do agree with you that Nigel
Yeah,
never, ever really wanted to get involved with politics. But I am glad, and I'm sure history is going to look kindly upon his decision to get involved. So
yes,
I must thank you. Well, he's coming on next. So thank you so much, Cathy, for
yes.
joining us.
Good. It's been my pleasure, and to all the Guyanese in the diaspora, and especially all the women, we love when you come home. I know that you're going to support us with your prayers, with your great thoughts. And I say thank you very much, Selwyn.
Oh, Cathy, before you go, just
Yeah,
quickly, two messages in the chat room.
sure.
Beverly said, "Hello, Cathy. I am hopefully going to be in Guyana either April or June. I'm looking forward to seeing you." Brenda Richards said, or asked rather, "What is the overall reaction from Guyanese and especially the women to the recent selection of the female ministerial candidate?" You think that can be answered in a minute?
Yes, I think everybody. I know Elizabeth Harper. Elizabeth is a wonderful lady. I think women we respect her. We respect her credentials. I think most people that I have spoken to just don't feel that she can change. What the PPP has become, and what there's so many things that have happened in the last 10 years, and at this point in time, maybe if they had brought her on board and were willing to have that kind of perspective in
Mm-hmm.
the way they handle the parliament and other things. But for many people, they honor her, they respect her, but they think that it's just a little too late.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. And Kathy, before Nigel come on, I don't know if he's going to be doing it from here. Just turn on the lights a light a little bit because the
Yes,
right.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thanks.
Actually,
Huh?
actually, Selwyn, he was just calling me, so I'm going to double check where he's at.
All
I
right, no
think.
problem. I will play some I'll play some clips before in the meanwhile.
Okay, great,
All right, good.
great.
Bye bye.
Thanks a lot.
You're
Take care. Bye
welcome.
bye.
Allowed to explore their real creative genius and skill. Of course, it will take a budget to do that,
Yes.
but I think that one needs to insist on it because that is how you eventually will end up marketing Guyana as a place where you can come. Because if we are the avant-garde of what is happening intellectually, what's happening in the creative arts, what's happening in the music industry, what's happening in the performing arts industry. If we create that environment, that milieu where ideas are flowing and people can express themselves and they have opportunities to look at new art forms, especially when you take